Live broadcast. It's a Wild Ginger Running YouTube channel, and tonight I'm here with somebody really special. It's 6:30 p.m. UK time, as always, on a Wednesday, and I'm delighted to talk to you tonight about mental resilience for runners. We've got mental health champion and multiple world record holder dressed as pieces of fruit and also a nut. It's Sally Orange. Yeah! Woo!
Hi.
So how are you doing, Sally? What have you been up to today?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you for inviting me on, first of all. Busy day. I'm a bit red. I've been sea swimming and kayaking today. So, a bit windburned, I think.
And you are dressed as one of your pieces of fruit. Do you want to give us a twirl?
I am. A slice of lemon.
Woohoo!
Always like to wear a fruity little number.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so let me just move these things around on the screen. So we've got lots of people watching tonight, so I'll just give you a little sample just so that you can feel like the others in the room. So Paul Hamilton says he's really pleased to be here tonight. Seb says hi everyone, and Philip Haddock says looking forward to this one. Alex DeHoto is here too. Mr. Whippet is here too. He says hi. He actually made a live chat. And John Gardner is here as well. Paul Hamilton says hi Sally, great to have you. And Paul has a couple of questions for you later on, which we'll get to in a bit. So that's just a little flavour of who's watching.
That flavour, I like it. See what you did there.
I did that by accident, actually. Totally by accident. Very much not clever enough for that. But I just want to big you up a little bit, Sally, before we get into the questions, if that's all right. Because I don't know if people know like how much they know about you. So I'm just going to put a few pictures up on the screen. So 2007, your first marathon ever, and you decided to do it dressed as a superhero. So I've got a little picture here of you dressed as a superhero, and you raised £4,500 for Outward Bound UK doing that, and you're the fastest woman dressed as a superhero.
Yeah, it was for years. I remember watching the very first London Marathon and thinking I'd always wanted to, I'm going to do that one day. And it just took years and years and years. I was so scared, and I just thought I won't be able to make the distance, and I won't be able to raise the amount of money for charity. And so it took until I was actually 34 before I did my first marathon. To help with the fundraising, I decided to do it dressed as a superhero, and applied to Guinness World Records and got the Guinness World Record for the fastest marathon dressed as a superhero, as you say.
Wow.
And basically it was sort of crossing that finish line that I felt like a superhero for the first time in my life. I really felt like a superhero. So that's where it all started.
That's amazing. And the fact that you just did your first marathon and you just decided, I'll just go for a Guinness World Record as well, just to throw that in there. That's brilliant. I love it. And then fast forward to 2009, you did another marathon, this time inspired by your name. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, as I say, I crossed the finish line and thought, first of all, I thought never again. And then that shortly went off, and I decided, I definitely want to do that again. And I knew that raising the money was going to be hard again. And I'd already asked quite a lot of people to help me with the fundraising. So I felt that I needed to do something different again. And that's where my surname sort of came into play. And I thought, I'll run as an orange. And thought, I'll see if I can get the Guinness World Record for the fastest marathon dressed as a piece of fruit. So that's where that all came from.
Yeah, it started off a really big thing for you, didn't it? And it's gone really, really well. And I'm just looking at the costume here. I've just put a picture up, and if anyone's listening to this on the podcast later, I can see that the orange is very fluffy. So it looks really, really warm. We do have a patron question about this from Arlene Matelock, who says, does Sally, how does she stay cool in all these costumes? Do you wear a hydration pack underneath or anything like that?
No, that one actually was really hot. It had a hula hoop round it as well to try and keep the shape. And another one that I've done was a Pink Lady Apple, which was a really big. You might have seen them in the London Marathon. But it's just like any marathon, just taking lots of frequent small sips. I make it a ritual that every stop I go past, I always take something and just have a few little sips of it. And yeah, just if I feel that I do sweat a lot, but if I feel that it's too much, then I'll just slow down a little bit, because I never, although they were for Guinness World Records, I never really with my marathons go for time. There's only 3 marathons that I've ever run that I can tell you the time, and all the rest of the time I just say that I go for the time of my life.
Yeah, that's a really good way of thinking about it, isn't it? Yeah, but you still end up as the fastest woman, which is pretty impressive.
Well, yeah, there's not that many fruits. There's a few bananas. There have been quite a few bananas that I've seen, and yeah, different fruits that people are doing. So yeah, it's good. It's good fun. That's why I like doing it.
Yeah, it definitely looks good fun. And then the third world record that you've got, am I right in thinking, is as dressed as a nut. So you've done this, and this was that when you started. Is this when you started to sort of get the mental health message out there along with the costumes, or were you already doing that? Because this seems like is this the pivotal moment?
Yeah, no, I was already doing. What I was finding was that being dressed as different pieces of fruit, I stood out a bit, and people were always asking me why. And I started by saying I want to raise awareness of mental health. So you might ask, well, how does that raise awareness of mental health, dressing as fruit? Well, it's already started that conversation by being asked why. And I just say, by talking about mental health, people often will say that maybe they've had a problem, or they know somebody who's had a problem. And it very subtly starts that conversation. It's not a great big thing that's plastered over me. And actually, if people are uncomfortable with talking about it, they can go back to the fruit costume. So it's as I say, it's just a different way. That if people want to, they can open up. And I sort of was coming up to 50 marathons, and I thought, so many people had always used to say to me, you're completely nuts, you're absolute nuts. And I thought, do you know what, I'm going to run as a nut. And I know some people said that it's making a bit of a play on the mental health thing. And I thought, do you know what, embrace it. So I ran as a peanut, and I had a sign on me saying, nuts about mental health, together we can crack it, because I do believe that we need to get the message out there. And so probably my proudest moment is being able to get the mental health message into the Guinness Book of Records. So although it is fun, there is a serious message behind it, if people want to ask more about it.
Yeah, very much so. You've actually answered somebody's question there, because they wanted to know what your proudest moment was. But maybe there's more proud moments that I can ask you about later. But that's absolutely fantastic, and I do want to talk to you more about mental health. I know you've run loads of things. Like it's incredible to think that you've ever had any mental health problems. You've run the race across America with an all-woman team. You've done the Arc to Arc triathlon, which involves swimming the Channel. Incredible. And you've done MDS as well, and you've just done your 50th marathon, the Yukon Arctic Marathon. That was just in January before everything was stopped, and it's just incredible what you've managed to achieve. So could you tell us a little bit about your background, like your story, about the severe depression and anxiety that is mentioned on your website?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for I never really. I think I'm just an ordinary person. I know that not everybody dresses as pieces of fruit, but I just found quite a unique way of having a different twist with my running, really. But yeah, unfortunately, so I've spent 22 years in the military, in the army, in the Royal Army Medical Corps, and after. It's probably about 15 years ago, I started to suffer with quite severe depression, and in those days it really wasn't really, not wanting to speak about it. There was very much a stigma associated with it, and I didn't want to talk about it. And that probably was only about 4 years ago that I applied to take part in the Invictus Games, and was selected to represent the United Kingdom for that. but I knew by doing that I was going to have to be a bit more open. But I still, at that point, I still kept it very quiet, and I just said that I'd had a few problems, kept it very personal, private. I'd had some difficulties. But then it was actually a year ago, I decided on social media, on my Facebook page, to explain to people, I feel I've got to be real here. You'll always see me smiling, but I struggle with life. I have some really big challenges and some really big difficulties. And it was a really difficult thing to do. I didn't know what the reaction was going to be like, but the reaction was really quite overwhelming. The amount of people who contacted me privately and said that they'd also had problems, that, whether that be now, previously, or when they were younger. And it really made me realize, wow, this has had such of a bigger impact. As I say, I think I had 50 separate in individual messages, that so much so that I couldn't actually reply to every single one of them. I had to group them all together and say thank you very much for your for contacting me and sharing your stories with me. It was felt a very, it was a difficult thing to do, but now I'm much more open about it now, because I feel that if people think that I can't, there's no way that I can suffer, and there are still people who, unfortunately, because I don't have any physical problems, think that there's nothing wrong with me. So I do feel that there is still a lot of work to be done, to be able to break down the stigma, and to educate people, really, because there's a real spectrum of mental health problems. And I'd like to get it to a point where we talk about mental health the same as we do as if we have a common cold. We all have colds. We have colds 2 or 3 times a year sometimes. Sometimes we might have to take a day or 2 off. For some people, unfortunately, it does get worse, and they might develop the flu, they may develop pneumonia, and so it can get very, very serious for some people. But and often when you've had a cold, or somebody has had a cold, you just think, oh gosh, and then you get that cold and you think, I wish I'd had a bit more empathy, I wish I'd been a bit more understanding. And I liken that really to mental health, because I think a couple of times a year we probably have different stresses, that if we just give ourselves permission to say, actually, we are human beings, we are normal people, then it would be helpful to ourselves and probably to others as well, that we see on social media, we think that everybody else's life is so much better than ours, and we compare ourselves to other people. So that's where I would like to see it go in the future.
And you said, like, with those 50 people emailing you, everybody a lot of people, more than you'd think, would have had problems like this. Do you think of they're kind of common to all people, or was it particularly in the military that you were finding these problems? But was there some kind of common challenges in particular faced by military personnel?
No, and I think and problems I have fallen into is when I have said that I've got a mental health illness, and people know that I've been in the military, they automatically assume that it's post-traumatic stress disorder, so PTSD. Now, my diagnosis is not post-traumatic stress disorder, and although my symptoms of depression and anxiety can be symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, that isn't my diagnosis. But there are so many other people in the civilian world, a lot of the emergency services who do suffer with PTSD, or antenatal depression, postnatal depression. Male suicide is one of the highest rates. I think particularly maybe male suicide within the military is again something that is perceived to be a big common problem, but there is a whole load of the population who, as I say, the stresses and strains that we have of everyday daily living. That's not to say that some people in the military don't suffer. They have seen some horrific things, but we all deal with things differently, and we quite often deal with things differently at certain periods of time. So we might be fine with that one thing 1 year, and the same thing could happen a couple of years down the line, and it might just be that straw that breaks the camel's back. So the difficulty is, I suppose the one thing I would say with mental health is it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. Anybody is susceptible to it, unfortunately. So it's being able to look after ourselves and look out for ourselves and each other.
Yeah, and to know yourself well so that you can see yourself sort of slipping down that slope before it's too late, and get help and get the right help that you personally need as well. And so for a lot of people, and I know a lot of people listening to this channel, they run for their mental health as well. They run to help their mental health. Was that how you found running and how you got into running?
Yeah. As I say, initially it was something that I'd always wanted to, I'd always aspired to, but it was part of my depression and part of not feeling good enough that made me think that I would never be able to do a marathon. And I think that's a big part of, it's called imposter syndrome, but it's basically a negative spiral of when you don't, if you don't feel good about yourself, you then think you're not able to achieve things. So that can all become quite difficult as well. So yeah, it's just a very. Sorry, go back to what you said from the beginning.
So I just wondered if you started running to help with the mental health, or were you already a runner? Yeah.
No, what I found was it gave me a sense of purpose, really, especially with the raising awareness of mental health. Physical activity is known to increase the endorphins, and I can honestly say there are many a time when I've regretted having not gone for a run, but there's never ever been a time where I've gone for a run and I've regretted it. But the hardest thing most of the time is getting out of that front door. Now for me, some days actually getting out of bed is a really hard thing, and my goals in some days is literally get up, get a shower. And even that, getting a shower, it doesn't matter if you can't wash your hair in the shower, as long as you can get a shower. That is at least, and that might sound strange that I can run marathons like that. I can go and do one tomorrow. It wouldn't be quick, but sometimes just getting up and getting a shower and getting 2 or 3 meals in the day can be one of the biggest challenges. So yes, it does certainly help, but there are times when it's recognizing that perhaps the goals that you set yourself have to be modified slightly. So if you're following a training program, the training program might say you need to do 5 miles or you should do 5 miles today. Rather than saying I'm not going to go at all, if you can just do 3 on those days, you're still working towards that goal, and you're not going to beat yourself up as much as if you don't do it at all. But even if you don't do it at all, your body is probably telling you something, that why you don't want to continue to do that. Now, I probably should have mentioned my background, although I was in the Royal Army Medical Corps, is actually as a physiotherapist. So I know a lot about physical health and rehabilitation and how to look after ourselves physically, and I think that there's a real big crossover into mentally. So we have physical fitness, we go to the gym, we keep ourselves fit, we keep ourselves ticking over, and so I think it should be exactly the same with our mental fitness as well. So that there is a real similarity, and it's really just doing physiotherapy for the brain is what mental fitness is.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely, I think that's a really great parallel to draw here, especially for runners. We know all about physical fitness. We all know about training ourselves for races and training ourselves for marathons and things like that. But training ourselves to be mentally resilient is really important as well. And so the topic of this broadcast is mental resilience for runners. What even is mental resilience? Like, what do you think it is? How do you define it for you personally to be mentally resilient?
So I think resilience really is how you bounce back from a situation, and it can be developed. It can be developed over time, and it's making sure that we learn from difficult things and obstacles that we may face in time. So it may well shatter you. A situation may shatter you at times, but you will get round it and you'll learn from that. Now, if it was to happen again, it would be hoped that you could learn from last time. And so unfortunately, experiencing difficulties, although it can seem really negative, it can also be seen as a positive, that you are developing that mental resilience, and your ability to bounce back. And again, if you liken it to a physical injury, which a lot of runners get, sort of knee problems, Achilles problems, there are still other things that you can do to help with your training for your marathon or your race or whatever it is. You may go swimming, or you may go cycling, so you may do something slightly different on the days that you can't run. And that's exactly the same with your mental health. There's so many almost different tools in the toolbox that you can pull on, and it may be just on that day running isn't the thing for you. It might be just doing something nice and being compassionate to yourself. So yeah, there are lots of different ways in which you can build and develop your own personal resilience.
Yeah, like chatting to a friend, or reading a book maybe. Like I find that if I've got like a complete lack of mojo, like complete lack of motivation, I try to listen to a podcast about something that's not related to running at all, because it's my job. So I'll like listen to the Infinite Monkey Cage, or something that I find really interesting, like about outer space or something to just like pique your interest, and you just go, oh, I'm curious about the world again. Like that's one of the little tricks that I have up my sleeve.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes when I've been in the deepest of depressions, sometimes it's actually very difficult to even remember what those things are that make you feel good. So even just having a list of things, or another thing that I've done previously is have a box of things in there, that it might be a photograph that reminds you of a happy time. It might be a smell that you really like and reminds you of a happy time. It might be a book, or just a thing of your favorite things that within there will help you feel positive. And it might be a day when you go, I need to get the box out today. I need to just have a bit of ray of sunshine, and that you open up the box and that ray of sunshine comes out. And it won't always lift you right back to where you were previously, but I think if it does, it can just spark that. It might be a video, it might be so many different things that you choose what you put in that box. So it's personal to you. It wouldn't be the same as anybody else's box, but it's just that reminder when things are just that little bit, you're not quite sparking on all, you're not firing on all cylinders, really.
Yeah, and I think there's a big sort of a kind of a pressure in our society to feel happy all the time. Like you scroll through Instagram, it's like smile after smile after smile, and of course we all smile in photos. Like everyone smiles in photos, that's what you're told to do, and no one takes a photo of themselves being really bored, like having a cry, like the weather's rubbish, and you just feel rubbish about life. So no one puts that up. So it's really easy to think I have got to be happy all the time, and to maybe look in your box or look at your list and be like fighting to be happy. But actually, do you think there's some value in just embracing the fact that you just feel rubbish and you just have a day off?
Absolutely. And I think through quite a lot of I've had lots of different therapies over the years, and there's a great book called The Happiness Trap. And it's exactly as you explained there, that we are human beings. We need to have the unhappy times to be able to appreciate the happy times. And if anybody's ever watched the film Inside Out, a brilliant...
Oh, I love that film.
Yeah, brilliant children's film, but it talks about different emotions of fear, of happiness, of joy, and it makes you realise that actually if you don't have those other emotions, you wouldn't function either. So you can't always... You need to have fear sometimes for your own safety. So I think when you look at it that way, it does make it a bit more understandable that and actually it would be really annoying if everybody all of the time was over the moon happy, because we've always had people sometimes when you just think, oh my goodness, they're just over the top happy. And it doesn't seem real. It doesn't seem real, and it's because it's not real, because there is nobody on this planet who is happy every single minute of every single day. And if you look at it like that, again, it's taking away that comparison and going, I'm just normal. I'm actually just normal. So whatever normal is.
So like welcome all emotions.
Yes. And sometimes it is recognising and sort of saying to that emotion, hello, sadness, you're back again. I don't really want you here today, but I accept that you're here today. I'm going to try and just move you to the side while I let a bit of another emotion in. But I recognise that you're still here. And I think sometimes even just recognising what that emotion is can be helpful as well. Maybe why am I feeling that? What's it making me that's feeling? What's it making me that? What is it that is making me feel that way? And addressing that. Because we've got very complex brains, and I call mine a bit of a tricky brain, because it can be, it can play some really nasty tricks on me, but it's working to manage those tricks. I'm not going to take them away, but I've got to be able to look at how I can work around them.
I must say this is all really resonating with everybody on the live chat, so I just want to read you out some things, Sally, so that you can just see what people are popping up here. So Gordon Parton, he just says, hope you're all keeping well physically and mentally, so he's just taking that on board. And James Penston says that he thinks that education in schools around mental robustness and mental strength would help a lot.
Oh, I'll mention something there, actually, because
go for it.
What I have started to do is I've now got over 40 different fruit costumes. And I have started to go into schools and talk to young people about the importance of healthy eating, physical activity, and mental fitness. So the fruit helps with the healthy eating, because I believe that they're all a triangle, and you can't really have one without the other, and how much they impact it on each other. And also sort of saying to young people, or people of all ages, that you don't have to be the fastest or the fittest, but if you can have fun, go out, enjoy yourself, move, it doesn't have to be a competitive. I think so many people are put off from sport, the word sport, when they're at the school, because it's so competitive, and they think, well, I wasn't fit at school, I was rubbish at sport at school, I was the last to be picked. But if we talk about movement as opposed to sport and competitive, now by all means, for some people, sport and competitive is great. That's what they want to do, and high performance sport is very much based on that. So it's not disregarding that, but that's only a certain percentage who are ever going to get to that level. But what I found by having the fruit there is that the children really engage in it. It's really colourful. It gives them a good flavour of lots of different. I've got lots of fruit jokes in there. It appeals to lots of different.
Appeals.
Exactly. But they don't necessarily understand what 26.2 miles is, but they can see somebody smiling and somebody wearing a piece of fruit. And one of the best things I love about when I do the marathons is I'm running, and I might be really struggling inside, but I see a child going, Mummy, there's a lemon, or there's an apple running by, and it can just lift your spirit and make them realise it doesn't have to be, fast or fun. And because of that, I've now I think it will probably be out in the next month, I've put together a book.
Oh, fantastic.
It's called A Fruitful Life by Sally Orange, and it's really talking about those three aspects of physical activity, mental fitness, and healthy eating. And it's just fun photos. I have a little claim to fame in that I'm the only person in the world that's ran a marathon on every continent dressed as a different piece of fruit.
Hey.
And so I use it as a way in schools to talk about geography, so educate about the different continents, to talk about history, because we talk about the history of the marathon, talk about emotions and fear, because I think there's so many people that fear they're going to come last. And I turn it round and actually say, do you know what? If you come last, you get the biggest cheer when you cross that line, because everybody else has gone forward before you. Whereas if you're first, everybody else is still behind you. So it's really turning that psychology around that makes people go, do you know what, actually, if we all support that person who comes last, and you're supported by everybody else, then that can change the way of thinking of young people. So that's what I'm really trying to do at the moment, is to inspire young people to just get out there and move and have fun, and it doesn't have to be competitive.
That's fantastic. I love the book, A Fruitful Life. We shall all buy that book. I'll put a link to it in the film description below. So everybody get that for your kids or just for you, because it sounds like a great book. And just coming on to the costumes thing, I want to. There's a live question about the costumes that you've just been talking about, and I want to say, I just want to show a picture of us. When we met.
Yes, I wanted to say that you were such a good sport, and put on an apple and ran with me, and we ran dressed as apples.
We did. It was great. Yeah. It was very warm. I remember thinking it's very warm.
But we actually met.
Yeah. But John Gardner has a question. He says, does Sally make her own outfits, or does she recommend a manufacturer? I think he might be thinking of dressing as an orange.
I love a good bunch of people to join me.
Yeah. Bunch. So, yeah, very good.
Most of them are up from eBay. If you put in fruit costume, there are loads and loads of different fruit costumes. They've only ever had one that was made, which I happen to have with me, and it is a slice of orange, which my mum did make for me, and that's because we found a pink grapefruit outfit that was a costume that was exactly the same, and I said, that's a really good, it folds up so I can take it away with me, and just this afternoon actually, I managed to get 3 really quite interesting people, and people that I did think, I'm sure they'll never say yes to doing this, to put the pieces of fruit on. So they will actually be on my Instagram. One of them is a BBC presenter and one of them he was in the special forces, and they're kind of like, actually I love what you're doing, and I'm gonna put a fruit costume on as well to help you raise awareness of what you're doing. So some people very much aren't into it, and that's absolutely fine as well. Some people will think,
some boring people. But haven't you got a selfie of you with Prince Harry? Because didn't he say that you were a tomato or something? He was like, why are you dressed as a tomato?
That's absolutely right. A couple of stories with Prince Harry, and that one time he said, it's exactly that, why are you dressed as a tomato? And I was like, I'm a strawberry, not a tomato.
Silly Harry.
Exactly. And he asked me what I was going to wear for my next marathon, and I said to him that in Antarctica I was going to get my nice pear out, and he just replied straight away and said, pear rather than your melons? I was like, well, he got them out in North America. So and Prince William, when I met him as well, he asked me if I've got a bit of a fruit fetish, which wasn't what I expected to be asked by the future King of England.
Wow.
But,
they are.
They're
good. I love Prince William and Harry because they're just like they do. Is it the Heads Together thing that they do? They talk a lot about mental health as well. And I just think they're brilliant ambassadors for this generation of royal people. They're just brilliant. I just think hats off to them because they've suffered so much in their lives, and it's just,
at the end of the day, they're human beings.
Yeah.
That's, they've had their own struggles and their own difficulties, and it's just making them, making others realise that they're just normal people. So and it was actually the Heads Together marathon that I was running when he asked me if I was dressed as a tomato.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of other people just sharing kind of what they do to help with their mental health on the live chat. So I just want to read a few out to you, Sally. So Alex DeHoto said he has kept a personal mental health first aid list for bad days. And he's saying when he couldn't even remember what helped, which was what you were talking about. Because you get really down, don't you? And you can't remember what you even liked about the world in the first place. Yeah, so that's a really good idea to keep a list like that. And then Paul Hamilton, he has a question actually. He says that a lot of runners use running as a mental health strategy to kind of manage the mental health. But then when you get injured, then what happens? So as a physio, he asked the question to you, what would you recommend?
Yeah, it is really difficult when you're injured, and so often I've had patients who, if you're having to say to them, you're going to have to rest at this time, and rest is almost a bad word to a runner, because they feel that they're not going to, if they've got a goal to achieve a certain race or a certain distance or a certain time, that's going to have an impact, so that can then worsen their mental health, because their anxiety can get worse with things. But it's having to look at it in a slightly different way, and thinking that if I take a short amount of time off now for that physical injury, I'm going to be able to get back a lot quicker. And like we said before, that when you are injured, that perhaps maybe swimming or perhaps or cycling or a different type of sport or activity, that excuse me, there's always different exercises that you can do. I've in fact. Just this afternoon, I was kayaking with a triple amputee. So he has one arm and was still out in the boat kayaking around Plymouth. So
Wow.
To me, that is incredible resilience of what he's overcome. He stepped on an IED in Afghanistan, over 10 years ago. But if he can still get out in a boat, then it's people like that motivate me to think, I've got an injury, I've got a bad knee. I've still got legs. This guy has no legs below the knee. They're above the knee that he lost them, but he's found something that he can still do. So no, he can't run anymore. Yesterday I was cycling with another guy who had also lost both legs and an arm above the elbow, and he was on a hand bike. So again, he was able to do things. And these are people to me that just show that you can still achieve and go on and do so much more. And I think we only need to think to the Paralympics and how inspiring watching the Paralympics is, because you think, wow, I've seen people doing archery with their teeth, and so for them, it'd be different muscles that they're using, but they can still go on and do things. So I know it can be frustrating that you can't do what your goal initially was, but it's just adapting that goal for a short amount of time. It's not always easy. I'm not pretending that it does take a time to accept that perhaps you're not going to be able to do, or not going to be as good as you were previously. And it's almost like a bereavement, to be honest, at some points, but it's just recognising there are always people who are worse off than you. So I think they're just two examples, yesterday and today, how people have gone above and beyond when really they probably shouldn't even be alive with the injuries they have.
Yeah. It is incredible, and people like that can be really inspiring. And John Gardner on the live chat says, Sally should be a therapist. She sounds very understanding and aware.
Oh, thank you.
And then
therapist.
Yeah, physical. You are a physical therapist. And Carl Southgate says that he has never dressed as a fruit for running, but he has been a gingerbread man.
I like that one.
Yeah, and he made it into the Birmingham Mail. Cool.
Oh, brilliant.
Nice one, Carl. That's awesome. And so we've got some more Patreon questions here. That I just want to ask you. So Vic Knight says, what elements of your army experience do you call upon during your training and during races? Do you have any specific kind of army exercises or an army mindset that comes in handy for racing and training?
I think probably I look back to the time when I was in Afghanistan, and I was working in the field hospital, and there was some, as I say, some horrific injuries that were coming into the hospital, and these people are never going to be able to run again. And so for me, when things are hurting, I do kind of think, I'm still very, very fortunate. I can do this. I can choose to do this. In fact, I am choosing to do this, and it's not going to last forever. The pain isn't going to last forever. So I think that as a mindset, and also probably my illness. When I was at my worst with my illness, when I'm struggling maybe with running, that I'll think, it's never as bad as when I was that ill. So, for example, in the Marathon des Sables, when it was a double marathon, and I was finding it hard, I just thought, do you know what? It's not half as bad as when you were really poorly. You've got over that, so you can get through this. So I think there's probably that the resilience probably that has been built is just by seeing what other people have overcome and achieved. It's probably helped with that, and also. Within the army, you're taught sort of core values, and they're things that are sort of almost central to you, that you live your life by. So, sort of being committed to things and determined, and those aspects that do help with things moving forward.
Definitely. So some things to draw on, and it's almost like you've got to go through some bad times to sort of for them to help you in the future. It's like, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Just got to keep on going.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And then Paul Hamilton, one of my patrons, he would like some advice on how to get over the mental barriers of training for a marathon, and in particular, like the really long, lonely long runs.
They can be long. They can be they can be daunting of thinking I've got to go and do that, or I'm not going to be able to do it. But it's breaking it down. I always think that with goals, it's breaking it down into short, bite-sized chunks. So, even with a marathon, I never ever look at the fact that I'm running a marathon. I look at the first 10k, and once I've got over that, I'm just going for another 10k. And I look at distraction techniques as well. So for example, in a marathon, I look at different people. I chat to people, and so I find out different stories. So things to help with distraction during your training runs are podcasts. I just think you can learn so much, and if you're focused on something, it's using that distraction, but you're actually improving your own sort of personal development at the same time, or your own knowledge on something. So you're not focusing on just that one thing, but I think also congratulating yourself and celebrating what you have managed to achieve is another thing that we're probably not very good at. But it's the biggest thing I would say is probably breaking it down into bite-sized chunks.
And definitely put a podcast on. This will be available as a podcast tomorrow when I make it.
We work well together, don't we?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, you're just queuing them up and I'm batting them in. And another question from Paul. He would like to know, out of all the marathons that you've run, do you have a favourite that kind of like really kind of that you draw on the best memories? And why is that your favourite?
It's such a difficult question. I've ran marathons in Uganda where actually I went for a week's volunteering, and the marathon was at the end of that. So that was such an incredible week, and the people that you met. But then I've ran across a frozen lake in Mongolia. I thought I was going to run a marathon. I got there and it turned out it was 100 miles. I thought, well, what's an extra three marathons?
Wow.
It was minus 50, but I was dressed as a chili pepper because I kind of thought, if I'm going to be freezing cold, I might as well look red hot. The Mongolian people, that was an incredible experience. Antarctica, people, how many people get to go to Antarctica? And I've ran across the Gobi Desert in Mongolia as well. So they're so different. Sometimes it's the people that I've met, the stories that I've heard along the way. It's really difficult to pick out a favourite because there are just so many. I say that I still have a very, very strong affection to London. I think because it was my very first marathon, the crowds are just incredible. New York was wasn't far behind. I was dressed as a Big Apple for New York, and they'd never seen a Big Apple running in the Big Apple, which I thought was quite strange.
Yeah.
But yeah, so sometimes it's the crowds, other times it's actually the solitude. So Antarctica, it was silent, and so that it's very different experiences, and that's how I would look at it, is an experience. And just lap that up, really.
Yeah, it's like trying to choose between children, isn't it? You can't choose your favourite child, can you? Yeah. And then finally, we've got a question from Arlene, which you did answer earlier. She wanted to know what your proudest moment was in all the events that you've done. I know you did touch on this earlier, but yeah, do you want to just kind of cover that in a little bit more depth, or are there kind of a few proud moments that you've had?
Yeah, I think, as I say, what I did say earlier was that getting the mental health message into the Guinness Book of Records. And I suppose, and this is just coming straight from the heart now, actually, running has almost allowed me to open up and talk about my mental health difficulties, because I was seeing how it was affecting so many other people. And I suppose the supportive network of people that I've met through it, that's then made me think, yeah, I will be open and honest. And that took so many years to be able to be open and honest and tell people my life isn't amazing. That's not right. My life is amazing. I have an incredible life. I'm very, very fortunate. But unfortunately, I still struggle with a lot of things. I suppose I'm just being real and being authentic to me, and not trying to be somebody who I'm not. So probably one of my proudest moments is actually being open and honest about the difficulties that I've had, and I suppose then going on to the doors that has opened, which is quite surprising. I'll be honest, some doors have very much closed, some friendships have very much been lost, so I can't say it's all plain sailing. I said I'm real. I'm sort of give warts and all, but there's very much some people that I've met that I wouldn't have met previously if I hadn't have mentioned the difficulties that I've had, and perhaps they're the better people for me in my life right now that have that understanding. It's not always easy to see it like that, but on a good day, that's a good way to look at it, really. So yeah, lots of different things there with the proud moments, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people would think, oh, proud moment, oh, a PB in this race or something like that, whereas your PB for you is opening up about your mental health difficulties, and those amazing doors to those amazing other people that you found, which is just fantastic. And yeah,
I'm not particularly PB driven. For me, it's not striving to be the best in a fitness or in a time perspective, but it's striving to be the best version of myself. And if running gives me that because of the podcast that I listen to help with personal development, there's lots of ways in which you can improve and be your best. It doesn't always have to be with the time. And because I suffer with quite chronic anxiety as well as depression, for me, I think it would heighten that anxiety if I'm always trying to go for a certain time, because I would feel a failure if I didn't get that if I set the standards too high, and I don't then achieve that. So I've gone, I don't want to even play a part in that. I want to enjoy the experience and enjoy the journey, rather than just the final time. And that's why I always say I'm going for the time of my life, and the runs and the people that I meet and the places that I go are very much more important to me than what that finished time says.
Yeah, I think that really resonates to a lot of us as trail and ultra runners. Like, we're not that interested in what time we did it in. We might be going for sub a certain number of hours or something, but the minutes and the second hand ticking by doesn't really bother us.
And I think we all get a medal at the end of it as well. So
yeah.
It first, second or third, you get a medal whether you come last. So
yeah.
You've still got something to show that you know. But often, and I think that's probably why I've never really told many people about the marathons that I run, because I'm not actually doing them I'm doing them for me, really. I'm not doing them to say, look at me, look what I've done. And that's why I find it quite difficult talking about a lot of the things that I have probably achieved, because I don't want it to be look at me. It is, that's what helps me, so that's why I do it.
Yeah.
Not so anything.
Yeah, and you've got all the fundraising as well. It's helped you do a lot of fundraising for Outward Bound and Help for Heroes and lots of different amazing charities. So yeah, we can definitely see it's not about you. It's about the conversations that you can have with people and enjoying yourself along the way in lots of different countries.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's fantastic. Well, I just want to say a big thank you to you, Sally, for coming on tonight. It's been really, really eye-opening, and it's been really refreshing to have such an honest approach to mental health and talking about all those little bits of tips and snippets of advice that you have there for runners to build their mental resilience. And I just want to read out some nice comments on the live chat. that people have just really appreciated this chat tonight, and when I put it on the podcast as well by tomorrow, then lots more people will be able to listen to it whilst they run as well.
Brilliant.
So
thank you, that's very kind.
Yeah, so I'll just read a couple out. Paul Hamilton says, Sally, you are a great inspiration. I will remember your perspective and positive attitudes during the last 6 miles of the next marathon that I run.
Good on you, definitely.
And Arlene M says, thank you, Sally, inspiring.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you.
So thanks so much for the chat tonight. It's been awesome to speak to you, and awesome to see you again after running with you as an apple with Anna.
Yes.
And so
it's getting quite hot now, my lemon, I have to admit. And I would like to prove I do wear normal clothes.
She's real. She's not actually a piece of fruit. So what's next for you, and how can people follow you and find out more and get your book? I'll put the link as well in my film description. But yeah, how can people follow you personally?
Yeah, so on Instagram, Sally Orange. And I have a Facebook page as well. So the book is out in the next month, and I do have a very, very exciting world first marathon, which is actually going to involve the Army Cadet Force. And mental health. It's very mental health driven. It is going to be hopefully quite a big thing and involve lots of the cadets. I was very honoured to be asked to be the national ambassador for the Army Cadet Force. So I very much want to inspire others to achieve, and particularly youngsters. And World Mental Health Day, October the 10th, that is when it is a marathon that has never been attempted before, and yes, is very exciting. So hopefully we will get quite a lot of coverage from it as well.
Brilliant. Okay, so it's a secret then. You can't tell us any more than it's just a completely new one.
I can't at the moment. It has all been signed off. It's definitely going ahead, and hopefully COVID can't even put a stop to this. So hopefully it will definitely still go ahead.
Brilliant.
But yeah, the cadets need to know first. We need to be able to let them know how they're gonna get involved with that. So, but yeah, I'll keep people posted on that. So exciting.
Brilliant. Well, everybody get following Sally on Instagram, check out her website, buy the book A Fruitful Life next month when it comes out. I'll put all these links in the film description below and in the podcast show notes.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sally. It's been brilliant to chat to you. And good luck with the planning for the next event.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for your very kind comments, and and have a great run tomorrow.
Awesome. Night everyone. Bye.
Bye.